Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Atho vihaye ma'amum chalotram vimarsito heyataya purastat Krishnan risevam adimanyamana Upavisat prayam amritya nadyam.
Translation. Maharaj Parikshit sat down firmly on the banks of the Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self-realization, because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit, none of the material planets, even the topmost planet Brahmaloka, is as desirable as Goloka Vrindavan. One page. Oh. The abode of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the primeval Lord and the original personality of Godhead. This earth is one of the innumerable material planets within the universe, and there are innumerable universes also within the compass of the Mahat Tattva. The devotees are told by the Lord that and his representatives, the spiritual masters or acharyas, that not one of the planets within all the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee. The devotee always desires to go back home, back to Godhead, just to become one of the associates of the Lord in the capacity of a servitor, friend, parent, or conjugal lover of the Lord. Either in one of the innumerable Vaikuntha planets or in Goloka Vrindavan, the planet of Lord Sri Krishna. All these planets are eternally situated in the spiritual sky of the Param Vyam, which is on the other side of the causal ocean within the Mahat Tattva. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of all this information due to the accumulated piety and birth in a high family of devotees, Vaishnavas, and thus he was not at all interested in material planets. Modern scientists are very eager to reach the moon by material arrangements, but they cannot conceive of the highest planet of this universe. But a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit does not care a fig for the moon or for that matter, any of the material planets. So when he was assured of his death on a fixed date, he became more determined in transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna by completely fasting on the bank of the transcendental river Jamuna, which flows down by the capital of Hastinapur and the capital in the Delhi state. Both the Ganges and the Jamuna are Amartya, transcendental rivers, and the Jamuna is still more sanctified for the following reasons, which is given in the next verse. So yes, Maharaj Parikshit was fortunate in many ways. First of all, he was born within the most elevated Vaishnava family, grandson of Arjuna. And Krishna is the cousin brother of Arjuna, so that Parikshit is part of that Krishna's immediate family. So, number one, he had such a pious birth and, of course, training and understanding and knowledge as he was growing up. But then he was also given the fortune of knowing the exact date, how long he had to live. And that's fortunate because he was able to make use of those last days. Actually, he was teaching by example. Because as it says, he already knew the transcendental information. He already knew. He was part of the family. He already had heard so many of these stories. So as by example, he's teaching. We don't know when our last days will be. They can be any second. We don't know. On average, people live to, a certain, around a certain age, but doesn't happen all the time. You can have accident, car, anything can happen, anything. So we never know when the time of death will come. But Maharaj Parikshit had that fortune, he knew, but because we don't know, we have to also take his guidance, his example, that we have to hear about the pastimes of Krishna, his incarnations, and not just hear about the pastimes, but understand the philosophical reasons behind those pastimes, what the teachings were, what the examples were that were being set. So, Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport that none of the planets, actually, when you look at this universe, and we have now with the modern technology, we have these, space, telescopes, and they're going way out, and they're just seeing universe, galaxy after galaxy after galaxy. It just keeps going on. And how vast the universe is. And in each galaxy are so many millions of stars, and each star has planets. And so the teachings of the Vedas, unlimited planets, unlimited universes, they didn't need the telescopes. This knowledge comes down by ascending knowledge from those who have the perfect knowledge. Prabhupada pointed out in the West, it's an ascending knowledge. It's that they're on the imperfect platform, and they're trying to ascend to a higher knowledge by their imperial senses, by the, using things like the telescopes, microscopes, and using the external senses to try to figure everything out. But that is imperfect knowledge and trying to come to perfect. And every time they make some theory that this is the theory of this or that, planets are created this way or that, then a few years later someone comes up with a different theory. Oh, the past theory wasn't perfect. Because they have imperfect knowledge, imperfect senses. They will never know the actual perfect knowledge. We are taking knowledge from the perfect beings, from Lord Brahma, from Narad Muni, from Vyasadeva. The knowledge is coming out. Where did Lord Brahma learn his knowledge? It's coming directly from Krishna. He was sitting on the lotus flower. It was all dark, everything, the creation hadn't begun. And he heard the flute, of Krishna's flute. It entered his ears as the flute. It came out of his mouth as the Vedas. Is the perfect knowledge. And from that knowledge, then he knew how to create the universe. So we're getting our knowledge down from the perfect, who already knows everything. So we take that knowledge from the Vedas. We accept. Prabhupada was very, there are some details in the Vedas that don't seem quite right by modern science. Srila Prabhupada was very adamant about staying with the Vedic scripture. One example is that the Vedas teach the moon is further away from the earth planet than the sun. Well, all modern calculations is that's not true. But Srila Prabhupada is very adamant. He stuck with it because he has full faith in the Vedas. One has to have full faith in the Vedic scripture. Now, on that point, Prabhupada had said sometimes the spiritual master will give some test of the disciple, like Madhavendra Puri tested Ishvara Puri. He tested all his disciples. He was sitting and giving class, and he said, "Oh, there's a snake, grab a stick. And everyone looked over, and everyone saw it was a coil of rope. So the only one that jumped up and grabbed the stick was Ishvara Puri. And then And then Madhavendra Puri said, no. It's just a rope. It's just a rope. That's okay. And then a few minutes later, Madhavendra Puri said, no, it's a snake. It's a snake. Grab the stick. So Ishvara Puri grabbed the stick. And everybody else is wondering, what's going on? What's going on with my spiritual master? Why is he doing this? And what's going on with Ishvara Puri? Anybody can see it's a rope. But, and then even Madhavendra Puri said, what are you doing? You know, why are you so foolish? Anyone can see that's a rope. So he asked Madhavendra Puri, and he said, because I know I have imperfect senses. And my knowledge is imperfect because it's coming through imperfect senses. But I know that you are teaching the perfect knowledge. So when you say that is a snake, I accept it's a snake because my senses are imperfect. So Prabhupada gave that example once. We heard that. I heard it anyway. I don't know because it's not recorded, but we had heard that he had given that example. I mean, right the same day that he had said it. That he accepts the Vedas, even if it says the moon is further away than the sun. He said sometimes the scriptures actually test. They test our faith sometimes. And Prabhupada's faith was unwavering. But everything else he teaches is perfect, and that is perfect. You know, how that's measurement is being judged, we don't know. You know, it's obviously a higher planet. So the moon is a higher planet. Is it closer, further, whatever? But he gives the example that nowhere in this material world, in this universe, or in all the innumerable universes, are these planets suitable for Vaishnava. Prabhupada had given that number of times. He said that this material world is no place for a gentleman. So do your business and get out. And get out means you, as it says here, the devotees want to go back home, back to Godhead. It is our desire. It is the ultimate desire. We want to get out of this material world, but actually the higher even is that we will just serve Krishna wherever. Because once you become actually Krishna conscious, then Krishna is then you are in Goloka already, even in this birth. So if you become really Krishna conscious, it doesn't matter what planet you're on. Then if Krishna wants you to do service in the material world, you do service in the material world. But our goal is to be with Krishna in that Goloka Vrindavan, or in one of the Vaikuntha planets, and whatever our natural pastime and relationship with Krishna is. At times, like it may be more prominent for Lakshmi Narayan worship. It may be more prominent for different types, for worship of Govinda, Gopal, different pastimes. And the devotees take birth in those times, and those become attracted with those features, and they're on their way back to their original situation of in the spiritual world, and the Vaikuntha planets are Goloka Vrindavan. The knowledge of Radha and Krishna is very, very rare. And it wasn't even known at the time, right after Krishna. It became more, Radharani's name is mentioned once in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But those who were the devotees, passed it down. Madhavendra Puri actually started, it was done a little bit before him. But he started doing the worship of Radha Krishna deities. His main disciple was Ishvara Puri, and he became the guru of the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so we have that understanding of Radha Krishna worship. It is more recent on this planet. And so now we have that opportunity to learn these pastimes, and we become attracted to those pastimes. How do we get to the spiritual world? How do we get to these different planets? The materialists are trying to go to the moon planet or the Mars planet, different planets. For what reason? What's there? Even by their telescopes and looking, it's just an empty rock. It's just dust and rock. What do they want to go there? There's so many. You can't go to the actual moon planet in this body. That is, you can't actually see and be aware of the palaces and the oceans and the rivers and the waterfalls that exist there. In this body, you have to have a moon body. You can't go to the sun planet. The sun god is there. Vivasvan Surya is there. You can't go there and see the palaces and exist there because you don't have a sun body. You have to have a body according to that condition. We can't live in the ocean without apparatus, without all, because we can't breathe in that water. The fish actually take oxygen. Their gills extract the oxygen from the water. We can't do that. Fish can't live on the land. You can't actually go to the moon planet. You can't go to the planets that are described in the Vedic scriptures in this material body. It is not possible. If you go, you're going to some empty rock. But how do you go to even the planets of the demigods? Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. So if you want to go to the planets of the Devas, you perform vrata, you perform worship you become a devotee of the different Devas. You become and those who worship the demigods, Krishna says, they will go to the planet of the demigods. You will worship Ganesh, you will go to the planet where Ganesh is presiding. You worship Shiva, you'll go to the abode of Shiva. You worship, the different demigods, you'll go to their abode. And Krishna says, Man manabhava mad bhakto, man yaji mam namaskuru. So if you think of Krishna always, and you become Krishna's devotee, bhakta, and you worship Krishna, and you offer your prayers to Krishna, your obeisances, and Krishna promises that you will come to him. You will come to his Goloka Vrindavan. This is the process of going to other planets. One of the very first books Srila Prabhupada wrote was Easy Journey to Other Planets. And someone had, I think, back before he came to America, someone had read that book and asked, Prabhupada, can you take me to the moon planet? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, oh, I can go to the, he said, yes. And then he said, I can't remember how the conversation went, but anyway, the man was saying that he can come back. And Prabhupada said, no, you can't come back. I can tell you how to go to the moon planet, but you can't come back. In other words, you have to give up this body and take a body on the moon planet. He said, but all this man was interested in was material sense enjoyment. First of all, he wanted to see the moon planet, but then he wanted to come back and tell all his friends, oh, I've been to the Indraloka, I've been to the moon planet, But if you want to go, you have to worship Indra, worship the demigods, perform pious activities, become purified, and that way you can go. But you go to the moon planet or the planet of Indraloka, you will have to come back. Eventually those pious activities are done, and then you build up a karma bank. You build up either good karma or bad karma. To get to the higher planets, you have to have good karma. You do good philanthropic deeds in this world, and you try to stay within the mode of goodness, you can ascend to a higher planet in the next life. But as soon as those karma is used up and enjoying, you have to come back. This is the whole samsara of birth and death. Krishna says even every planet, from the lowest planet to Brahma Loka, they are all a place of misery, wherein repeated birth, death, and disease take place, old age and death. even on the Brahma Loka, even in the Indra Loka, everywhere. But in Krishna Loka, we can go there and there is no birth and death. There are no disease. But it takes a process to go there. One has to be pure. You can't go with material desires. You can't go with mundane desires. Prabhupada gave the example of a poor man. He's traveling along the road and he sits underneath a tree and he's hungry. And so he has his eyes closed and he imagines a feast. And he imagined this mat rolled out with all kinds of plates and different preparations. And he starts smelling all these things. And he opens his eyes and there it is, the whole plate, everything, all the plates, all the preparations. And what is this? So then, and then he starts desiring different things and they start manifesting. He's actually sitting under a kalpavriksha tree. So everything he's desiring is happening. So then he starts desiring, he's the king of and he has a big palace and a big, army and lots of servants and many wives, and it all manifests. And he's thinking, wow, this is, anything I desire, it's happening. And he thought, oh, what if I start thinking about a tiger is coming, and a tiger is start to, it's going to pounce on me, and all of a sudden the tiger pounces on. Because his desires were not under control. And in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, every tree is a kalpavriksha tree. Every stone is chintamani. Everything is, all your desires can be fulfilled, but if you have mundane material desires, they will come, and like that tiger, they'll come and bite you. You can't stay there. You have to be totally pure of your desires. And what is that? You just desire to serve Krishna, to make him happy. From the mundane point of view, this seems very, arrogant of Krishna. Because if you take Krishna, if you take an ordinary person, like a king, an ordinary king, and he will only be kind to his subjects if they worship him, if they adore him, you will think that man is very arrogant. He's very puffed up. And because they are not actually pure. They have so many, they just have so many mundane. But actually, this is how we have to worship Krishna. And that is why some people become envious of Krishna. Because they think, why is Krishna being worshipped? Why can't I be worshipped? Why is Krishna being given all the adoration and why can't I be given that? So as soon as one has that desire, back into this material world. That is how we become into this material world and then have to slowly elevate. You cannot have those desires. Krishna fulfills everything because what does the living entity want? The living entity wants to be happy. That's all. Whoever you are, whatever your situation is, everyone just wants to be happy. So how do one achieve happiness? By buying the newest, the newest car, by having the biggest house, by, being elected as a government official. How do you become happy in this material? And this, anywhere. How do you become happy? But all of these things, making more money, earning more income so you can spend more, enjoy more, what is that happiness? That is flickering. It comes with so many bad side effects. There are so many drugs to relieve pain. Almost all of them have so many bad side effects if you keep taking. So to get these things, you have to do karma, you have to engage in activities, which then builds up so much, reaction. And it will come back. So you may enjoy those things, but they're flickering, and they have side effects, severe side effects. And what was I going to say? But what the point is to be happy. So all of that, working hard and getting more income, getting more material things, trying to satisfy your material body senses, that is like pouring water on the leaves of the plant. It just runs off. You're trying to water one leaf and the water runs off. You're that one leaf. And you're trying to nourish that one leaf and the water just runs off. How do we water Tulsi? By watering into the root. You water the plant, it takes in the nutrients from the root. What is the root? Cause, the root origin of our existence. That is Krishna. So if we really want happiness, we don't try to apply it to the individual leaf, my family's members' leaves. It'll just flickering, it won't last, and it has side effects. But if we put all of that toward the root, then the nourishment goes through the whole plant. So Krishna says, yes, think of me, man mana, become my devotee, mad bhakto, and man yaji, worship me, and man namaskuru, offer me your obeisances, your prayers. And by doing this, we nourish ourselves and we nourish the whole existence. This is how and so only Krishna can do that. The king can't do that. A mundane person can't do that. A business owner of a big company can't do that and say, I want everyone to adore me and chant my glories. But that isn't, he can't give that reciprocation. He can give some mundane, I'll give you a raise of your income. I'll do king may give some other facility, but they cannot give the ultimate happiness. Krishna is the origin of everything. Only he can do that. Even the benefits given by the demigods, Krishna says that is under his control. He is the one who ultimately awards. So by worshiping Krishna, giving all of our devotion to Krishna, then we get the ultimate happiness. Then it comes, because only Krishna can award that. And that is what everyone wants. So, and Maharaj Parikshit, he knew that because he was born in the devotee family, but he, by example, was teaching how we are to learn this knowledge by hearing about these Bhagavatam, the stories, the teachings, because each pastimes has its teachings. Nrsimha isn't just about the lion, half man, half lion, but it is about Prahlad Maharaj and how his devotion saved him from so many calamities, and how his devotion, the demigods couldn't pacify Nrsimha, but by his devotion, Prahlad Maharaj was able to pacify him. So there's so many teachings in these scriptures. So are there any questions or comments on the class? Okay. Hare Krishna, if you can, I can't hear very well, so if you could tell someone the question.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji. Prabhuji, right now book marathon is going on and we are going outside to distribute books. And when we approach someone, no, they tell that we have the books and we have different books we are reading. And they will say like this and they'll go. And we'll get, sometimes we'll get frustrated. Oh, what is it? We are just telling someone, no, they're not taking the books and going like this. How to,
How?
means in that situation, telling them again and again, means a lot of people, they're not taking and going like this. We'll get frustration in that time. And also, we'll not do distribution like this. In our mind, it will come like this. How to means tackle in that situation?
Okay, I'll have to have someone repeat the question because I have a little hard hearing, so I couldn't quite understand. Okay, well, they already have. Do they have in that specifically? Do they have Srila Prabhupada's books? Is that what you're saying? That is actually the glory of the book distributors that they have Prabhupada's books. I would say at that point, Prabhupada would be more interested that they are reading his books than taking more books at that point. But I know the point of the marathon is to get the books distributed, but the real point is to get the knowledge distributed and to get people to understand that knowledge. So I would say from Prabhupada's point of view, he's very happy his books are going out and the people are getting his books, but are they reading them? Are they applying them? Are they understanding them? Do they need help in those ways? Because that, should they get more association of the devotees to hear and try to understand and apply them? I know that may sound counter to the, getting more books out for the marathon, but that's actually the whole point of getting the books out, is to get that knowledge disseminated and to help people, to uplift them, to help them understand it and apply it. So that's really the whole main focus. And that means they can come to the, maybe have more association with the devotees, come to the temple. I mean, if you're looking at it that way, the temple will still benefit. They'll come, but the main thing is to get the knowledge out. And Prabhupada would be very happy to know that so many people have his books, but he'll be much more happy if they're reading them and then applying them. Anyway, I'm not. I can't think of any other real answer for that, really. If they just have a book and they're not reading it, then ask them why. Or is it in America, outside of India, it would be because there's too much Sanskrit and they may have stumbling around on different words and they don't really, so it's hard for them to read it. But then come to the temple and take association with the devotees and, learn the philosophy, learn it in other ways, but here, and then eventually they can understand the words better. But here in India, I don't know if that would be an issue. So why aren't they reading? Oh, they don't have time. Or I started to read it and I'm not interested. Then you can help them in those ways. So find out. But as Prabhupada said, the most thing is to get them to take a book. But after that is to get them to read it.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Huh? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
In the initial part of your lecture, you said that whatever the spiritual master says, it must be accepted, since he speaks the perfect knowledge. If we try by ourselves, we'll not be able to understand, since our senses are imperfect. So our perception will be imperfect in nature. But in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we see in the early parts, we have Madhvacharya, who learned about Advaita philosophy from his teacher in his school of philosophy. But later on, when we study about his life, we come to know that he, by studying Vedas, he adopted the Dvaita philosophy, and his teacher accepted defeat from him. So how do we understand this pass on of knowledge through master, but then again, a reverse process happening in this case?
Okay. the it, I'm probably not, I am not qualified to actually go into that detail because I don't know that much of Madhvacharya. So his first guru was, I know his, he had taken initiation from Vyasdev. He had gone to the abode of Vyasdev. Now that was where he started teaching. But which spiritual master are you referring to then? Before? Huh? Okay, so I'm not, like I said, I'm not as familiar with Madhvacharya to give an answer, but and that if one has taken I'll just give it in a different example. If one has taken a spiritual master and that spiritual master is not teaching like we are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we are learning about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya's mood and the mission. And sometimes one may have a Vaishnav guru, but they're not teaching quite the same. One can have many shiksha gurus, and I'm not qualified to answer because I don't know the Madhvacharya's pastime so well. Okay. Actually, I was my friend here had asked me to say something about some of my remembrances of Srila Prabhupada. And let's see. First of all, Srila Prabhupada was so just compassionate and merciful. Just, I had gotten Prabhupada's books in 1970 from the library. And so for 3 years before because and those books didn't mention temple. I didn't know, I accepted Prabhupada as my guru, but I didn't know how to find him. I didn't know there was a temple. I didn't know any of that. So it took some time. And then even when I found out there was temple, it took some time to go to the temple. The devotee that gave me Back to Godhead magazine, actually it was at an Indian grocery store, the owner of the grocery store, anyway, he's the one he had a stack of them from the devotees giving him. So he gave me and he said, come to the temple on Sunday for the free feast. And he emphasized free feast. By then I had been, I had been for several years accepting Srila Prabhupada, and I thought, I don't need free food. So I would specifically go not on Sunday. I went on Saturday and the temple would be closed. Everybody was out distributing Prabhupada's books or out in Sankirtan. I'd knock on the door, nobody would be there. So it took me 3 years to actually join the temple. And I had that relationship with Prabhupada. I accepted him as my guru for 3 years. And yes, I had read other books before, and I had read like Vivekananda's book about Ram Krishna, and he was explaining how a light came out, and and entered into him, from his guru. So I was expecting when I see Srila Prabhupada, there'll be some very magical, mystical experience, because I had accepted Prabhupada for 3 years. Seemed like a long time. So I came to the temple, and devotees told me that Prabhupada was there in Los Angeles and I should come the next morning for Bhagavatam class. So I arrived a little bit late, and I was thinking, the class lasted longer. But when I came to the LA, it was the Los Angeles temple where the old temple room was, and it had an entry foyer, and it was just a small area, but the whole temple was standing room only. So when I came, I came to the foyer, and it was just devotees standing in front, and I couldn't see Prabhupada. But I'd come the day before, and I was for several minutes trying to see him. And I thought, here I've come, and I was thinking some great mystic thing would happen, and I can't even see him. I'm unable to see him, or he can't see me. And I was thinking he would recognize me, he would know me, because that internal relationship. But I came the day before, and a devotee had told me, when you enter the temple, you should offer obeisances, bow down. So I remembered that, so I went on my knees and touched my head to the floor, and I prayed that, Krishna, please let me see my spiritual master. But instead of standing up, I sat up, and the people in front of me that were standing, one leans off to the left, one leans to the right. The next row, one leans over, the next row. It's like one by one, and they just leaned apart, and Prabhupada's looking straight at me. And I was expecting some, mystical thing that everyone would see, everyone would notice, but it was mystical for me. That Prabhupada was looking, and he had such a merciful, compassionate look on his face. His eyes were just like beaming out that mercy and compassion. And he gave his head a nod, and then he went on speaking. And from that, I understood, Prabhupada understood who I was. I was feeling like I was thinking, he'll stand up and, and say, you finally come. But he gave that nod, and I understood. He knew who I was. He was giving me that you have come, I had another experience similar with Prabhupada years later. It's kind of a long story, but I guess I'll explain it. It was, I had never told anyone this, and when I gave the first time I told it, it was just 4 or 5 years ago, and another godbrother, Shesha, GBC, he told me to go ahead and give it's Prabhupada's parents' day. He said, give my offering first, then he'll give his. And his was about how he didn't take, that whenever Prabhupada would look at him, he would look down, because he felt that Prabhupada knew his sinful background. He would just look down and so he said he never actually, just got that mercy of gazing with Srila Prabhupada. So when I gave it was similar, but it's going to take a little while. I was shy at that time. I was like, when someone would look direct eye contact, I would usually look down. And then I realized it was a problem at one point. And then I read that, because I was my service was designing the control systems to run the multimedia museums. And I had to work with people on a professional basis. And I would go, and I was noticing I would look down, and I wasn't giving eye-to-eye contact. And then I read in it said that if you're dealing with people on business, you should give eye-to-eye contact. You should, because from that you can read a person, you can tell the person. I thought, then I need to work on this. So the next day, a devotee is talking to me, one of my godbrothers, and I went to look down. I thought, no, I'm going to do eye-to-eye contact. And I looked directly at him, first time, and I'm getting butterflies because I wasn't used to it. So just God, brother. So the next couple of days later, I'm walking by and he's standing there talking to some devotees, and he stopped me and he said, take Ameyatma for an example. When you talk to him, he gives you eye-to-eye contact. He said he doesn't just look away. He was the first devotee I did that with. And he was telling the other devotees to use me as an example. But he said, from that eye-to-eye contact, you can actually read a person. You can tell how they're, and you can actually communicate just by that eye-to-eye contact. And I thought, it was interesting because when Srila Prabhupada would come to LA, or sometimes we would go up to San Francisco for the Rath Yatra, the temples would be crowded. And it would be especially up close next to Prabhupada. So when the kirtan was going on, and then at the end, and Prabhupada would Jai Om Vishnupad, and everybody would head for obeisances, you're standing there shoulder to shoulder in the kirtan, and you got 1 square foot of property, land. And then all of a sudden, everybody is offering obeisances. And it's like you need a little bit more space. So I was noticing you go down and offer obeisances and you're getting someone's foot on your head. Well, that's good. You're taking the dust of the devote. But then your foot is touching somebody's head. So I hesitated one day to see if there's enough room. And there was no room after everyone offered obeisances. So I just went on one knee and I'm kneeling, and I was standing, and I was thinking, and I'm offering, Prabhupada's chanting the pranam, the Jai Om Vishnupad Padamangsa, and he's going on, and it takes about 3 minutes that Prabhupada chants. And in that time, I'm standing and I'm thinking, and I looked around, nobody else is standing in the whole temple, just me. So I'm thinking Prabhupada must think I'm a total nonsense or something. Then I thought, no, Prabhupada understood. But when I looked at Prabhupada, he's looking right at me while he's chanting. So, like Sesha said, I put my head down. And then I'd look up, and Prabhupada was still looking right at me. And this happened. I wasn't doing it on purpose, but it was happening a number of times. At the end of usually the Guru Puja, and Prabhupada would start chanting the Jai Om prayers, and there was no room. And I hesitated just because I didn't want to put my feet on somebody's head. So and a number of times I would be kneeling, and every time Prabhupada would be looking right at me. And every time I'd put my head down. So after we had this conversation, it was Guru Atma, my godbrother, and he was saying that, you can communicate with someone just by eye contact alone. Then I thought, I wonder what will happen if I don't look down. And I just take Prabhupada's mercy and accept his mercy and just accept that eye-to-eye contact. I was just wondering what will happen. I didn't do it on purpose, but the next time there was no room. So I was standing or kneeling, and I looked, and Prabhupada's looking right at me. I go to look down, I thought, no. I will take Prabhupada's mercy. 3 minutes, I've timed it on a tape. It takes about 3 minutes for Prabhupada to chant those prayers. And that whole time, Prabhupada did not look away. And I wanted to in one way, because I felt embarrassed, and at one point I felt like when you're a child and you have the staring contest, who's going to blink first? I was thinking, am I going to look away or Prabhupada? But then all I felt was what I felt when Prabhupada first looked at me that first day. Just mercy and compassion. It was just, that is what you could see in Prabhupada. It was just mercy and compassion. And he understood. I understood that he knew. And he started, as he was chanting those prayers and he was looking, I could just feel like he was telling me, come. It just felt like he was inviting me to come. And I thought, how come? But he meant, just come. Join with him. He's on his way to Krishna. He'll take me to Krishna. So that was a very personal experience that I had. And yes, I was the first one who looked down. After the end of the prayers, then I offered the Namo Vishnu Padaya and I looked down. But Prabhupada did not. He actually stayed looking right at me. And I took that mercy. And, at first it felt odd, just to not, but then I could just see he was just giving mercy and compassion. So, anything else that I... But that mercy and compassion is there in his teachings. That's the most important thing. It's the most important aspect of the spiritual master. And you can have that relationship with Srila Prabhupada still. You just don't have to have his eyes looking. That was the extra benefit of having been in Prabhupada's association. I didn't have so much that Prabhupada and I had conversations, but my relation was within the heart. And the Chaitya Guru from within. And that was my relationship with Prabhupada most of the time. Externally, these things of him seeing me, looking at me a couple of times, but on a morning walk and things and in his room. And you asked about Prabhupada in his room, upstairs in his actual quarters, he had three main rooms. Well, one small room where his books were kept, his bedroom where his bed was, where he took rest, and his, I don't know exactly what you call it, his office, like where he'd do the translations and everyone would come and meet with him in that room. And there was a small altar there. So we were in his meeting room, and we brought up a model of because I'm working on we called it Fate Museum, the doll exhibit. Prabhupada called them doll museum exhibits, the dioramas depicting Krishna's pastimes. And I started as an artist with that project because I was starting to paint for Prabhupada's books. And then Bhardwaj, who was in charge, Prabhupada sent him to India to learn to make these diorama exhibits. So like these samsara back here. This is one of the ones that we made, and Bhardwaj painted the original painting for that. Bhardwaj was the main artist of the BBT. He had just painted the books for a number of the paintings in the Bhagavad Gita. He painted the cover of the original Macmillan Gita. He painted, and all the paintings that he didn't paint, he did a lot of the sketches and other artists painted. So he was the main artist in BBT. Prabhupada sent him to India to learn to make these diorama exhibits. So when he came back, he came to Los Angeles. He was in New York when he left, and he came back to Los Angeles to make the first exhibit there. So when he came and we're making some of the first dolls, I asked, how are these exhibited? And he just said, we make a raised platform and we put a plaque in front that explains. I thought that was boring. I thought, so I grew up in Los Angeles or Southern California, and that's the entertainment capital. Hollywood is there, and I had been to Disneyland so many times as growing up. So I thought, well, we should have a soundtrack. Anyway, I started adding all these things to it. I said a soundtrack with background music, give it some ambience. Then when Bhardwaj agreed to that, then I thought, well, then we should have a narrator speaking on the tape instead of a sign. Then I added, we're making Krishna Arjuna in the chariot. So I added, we should have voiceovers for Krishna so he can speak and Arjuna can speak. And then we can have lights that fade in and out. When Krishna speaks, the light fades on when Arjuna speaks. And then we wound up building this. Finally, when Bhardwaj accepted the idea, we designed the museum with 11 exhibits and 250 dimmer-controlled, computer-controlled lights. Special effects projectors, rear screen projection, all this. And we designed the whole museum, and then Prabhupada is coming, and we realized nobody asked Srila Prabhupada if he approved of all that. So we made this model of the museum, 4 foot by 4 foot, and took it up to Prabhupada's room, and it just had cutouts for the exhibits. So the first one was Srila Prabhupada in his room, and Radha Damodar and Vrindavan as he's translating the books. The next exhibit was Krishna Arjuna on the chariot, and then the Samsara diorama, and all these different exhibits. So Bhardwaj was explaining, and Prabhupada, you asked about, Prabhupada, in that mood, he was just like a child in a candy shop is how I describe it. He was just so happy because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati asked for these exhibits. He started that in the 1930s. So this was a very dear project to Prabhupada. And he saw that we're finally making the first exhibits in America. And so he was just so happy to see. And he came over to the model and he said, so, where's the entrance? And it was in the old temple room, the one I was describing that had that foyer entrance. Because now in Los Angeles, the temple room is in the bigger hall, but before it was in the smaller. And so he said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, this is the old temple room, and the entrance is with the foyer here. And then Prabhupada went and he put his fingers on the model. He came in, and at the entrance, the wall goes off in an angle. You can go one way or the other. So Prabhupada walked with these things. Oh, which way do I go? And Prabhupada said, oh, Prabhupada, this way. And Prabhupada's walking with these fingers. It just seemed so, he was kind of like a child at that point, and he was just walking with these fingers. And then Bhardwaj said, oh, the first exhibit is this way, Prabhupada. Prabhupada turned his hand so that his hand could see the exhibit. Then he came over and was looking. So he was doing like that. And it was like, anyway, it was just, for me, it was very, and then Bhardwaj's explaining all these effects. He's explaining that the exhibits are dark and the lights fade up and the soundtrack comes on and all these things. Gets to samsara diorama, there's rear projection screen and all these things. And then we get to the universal form. Bhardwaj's saying 64, controlled lights and special effects projectors, rear screen projection, all these things. And Prabhupada did not say a word. He's smiling. So Bhardwaj finally asked, Prabhupada, we're having this meeting and we want to know if you approve of this. Ultimately, though, Prabhupada said one thing, it takes some explanation to explain, but he was very happy with it. But when he sat down, he said, I wanted this. He said, I wanted that you Western devotees would use your knowledge of modern technology and utilize it to preach and spread Bhagavat Dharma. And he said, if I didn't use the jet plane and the microphone, then they would be useless. So he approved of using the modern technology to spread our Bhagavat philosophy. Even though our Bhagavat philosophy and Prabhupada was teaching simple living, I think. Ultimately, he did not want that everyone go and work in factories and make all of these things. Ultimately, he wanted the simple living. But we will utilize what is there to preach and to spread this philosophy. Otherwise, he said it's useless. So I will end there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.